So, my dear children, welcome to this EDUSAT English teaching program. Today, we are going to discuss the second part of the chapter, the passive. And in the last session, we discussed different forms of passive and different patterns of sentences with passive forms, right. And today, we will discuss how to use these passive forms and where to use and where we should not use these passive forms or where there is restriction for the use of passive forms. Let us begin the grammar session, the second part of the passive chapter with a letter. Let us go to the read a letter. Now, you read a letter. This letter is from a child, from a son to his mother. So, my dear children, in the grammar session, you can also learn, you can know how to write a letter, right, because you are supposed to answer a question, you are supposed to write a letter in your examination. So, you very carefully with proper attention look at the letter, how letters are written. This is an informal letter, a letter from a son to his mother, right, and the son is writing about his friend's achievement. Dear mom, last night an award ceremony was held for my friend Amiya. He is a real hero in our school, and last night he was given medal for his bravery. Everyone was impressed. After the ceremony, his picture was taken with the chief minister. Later, there was a party at our school to celebrate. We all were invited. It was fantastic. We enjoyed ourselves very much. Truly, we all had a good time. I will write more later. Bye for now. Love, Chiku. So, who is writing or who has written this letter? Chiku has written. To whom? To his mother. About what? About his friend's achievement, right. Now, you look at the sentences with red color phrases. Last night an award ceremony was held, simple past, passive form with simple past, was held, was given, he was given medal, everyone was impressed, right. So, was impressed, was taken, were invited, was held, all these verb forms they are in passive forms, we have already discussed, right, my dear children. And you also can easily use these forms when you are writing something, right. Let us go to one activity which is there in your textbook. Here under is a letter written by a father to his son. So, in the previous letter a son has written to his mother, now a father has written to his son. Rewrite it changing the verbs in brackets into their appropriate forms, right. So, read the letter, you can find some verbs in brackets and you have to change their forms, you have to make passive forms of these verbs. First you read, then you will do this. Bakshi Bazar, Cuttack, 2nd January 2030. This is one exercise from your book. Rakesh, I understand that the annual day function of your school is going to hold on your school premises this evening. I tell that the governor of our, you just see tell in bracket, has invite in bracket to inaugurate the function and to give away the prizes to the winners. I know that you secured the first position in your class in the last annual examination and also came first in the debate and essay competitions, which within bracket held at your school. You would certainly within bracket awarded some prizes and medals for your merit and proficiency. I would have been very glad to see you receive prizes from the governor, if I within bracket invite to the function and be present there at such happy moments. However, enjoy yourself and stay happy at the function, more when we meet. You just mark the last sentences, more when we meet, lots of love and good wishes, father, right. So, now you look at the answer, how passive forms have been used here and I have used red color to focus the passive forms. Bakshi Bazar, Cuttack, 2nd January 2013. Rakesh, I understand that the annual day function of your school is going to be held, right? To be held on your school premises this evening. I was told, that means they told me, or people told me, or children told me, or you told me. So, I was told that the governor of our state has been invited. So, governor of the state has been invited. So, these are passive forms. Now, you look at the red color passive forms which were held, that means the debate and essay competitions which were held, right. You would certainly be awarded, right. Then if I had been invited to the function, and was present there at such happy moments. However, enjoy yourself and state. So, my dear children, these are the passive forms. This is for your recap, this is for your recollection of the previous discussion, right. Let us go to the restrictions of passive forms where not to use. Before going to the restrictions, now I would just like to say something about how to change the sentences, active sentences into passive sentences, some techniques, so that it will be very easy for you to answer the questions in your examinations. Suppose I am just going to give one example. The teacher taught the children English. You just see this. The teacher taught the children English. So, as you know, the transitive verbs, they can be changed into passive forms, right. In this sentence, this is the verb and this part is the subject, the teacher, as you know, subject. In class 9 you have been taught, right, and this is the third form of the verb teach. Teach is a verb which is a ditransitive. Transitive verbs, we have two types of verbs, intransitive and transitive. Transitive verbs jahako ame sakarmako ba karma with objects. So, this is a transitive verb and this verb is a ditransitive verb. This is a ditransitive verb. Right. Di means two, transitive, two objects. So, this is one object and this is another object, right. So, this is indirect object, the children, and this is indirect object and this is direct object, what and whom. So, the teacher taught the children English. When we will change the sentence into passive form, the object will be the subject of the sentence, mind it. So, you just see this will come to this place, object will be, and usually when we have two objects, the first object becomes the subject of the, it is usually it is done, or we can also take the second object as the subject, no problem, right. So, the children, now we see the children, right, and taught here, this is the third form of the verb and we have to use a be verb because this is in past simple past. So, we have to use the passive form in simple past, means we have to use the be form, the children, past form is was or were, be form. So, was is the singular form, that is why we can say, we can write were. So, this is the be verb plus the third form of the verb were taught, right. Then what the rest part is, were taught English. The children were taught English, we have already discussed, and you can also ignore by the teacher, because teaching is usually done by the teacher. This is very general, that is why we can ignore, I mean nolekhle bi chalibo. But if we change this, the headmaster, we can say the children were taught English by the headmaster. Suppose I change this, I write the headmaster taught English. You just mark this, right. So, the children were taught English by the headmaster. So, what happens you see? So, this is the subject becomes here, and this is the object, this is what we say, this is the agent, we say this is the agent, right, and this is the patient, we say this which is affected, that means the children were taught, and this object becomes subject, and the subject becomes the agent or by agent. Then the be verb is used, and the third form. So, be plus third form of the verb, or we say en form, right. This is actually very easy. So, my dear children, when you are going to change the active sentences into passive forms, you can follow these steps, right. But we have some restrictions of passive forms. Not all active verbs can have passive forms, you see. I have a car is had by me, we cannot say. So, verbs like have, right, we cannot use to eat, to take, to experience, to suffer, these verbs cannot be used in passive forms. This is the first restriction, right. Now, you see, I am resembled by my father, resemble is a verb. So, verbs like lack, feed, shoot, flee, hold, let, owe, like, possess, resemble, this cannot be used in the passive forms. So, we cannot say courage is lacked by him, tar sahas nahi, courage is lacked, lack is a verb we cannot use. I am well fitted, fit is a verb cannot be used. The country was fled by, that means flee, flee is a verb cannot be used in passive forms, and these are the verbs like marry, make, like, read, drink, climb, eat, love. Eat gote verb ame सबुबेले व्यवहार करन. The traditional grammarians, old grammarians, they use these verbs, but nowadays it is very restricted, this verb is restricted. So, these verbs we cannot say Sita was married by Ramachandra, we cannot say 5 is made by 2 and 3. So, chocolates are liked by children, these are wrong sentences. So, these verbs like marry, make, like, read, drink, climb, eat, love, these are very restricted verbs we cannot use in passive forms, right. Reflexive, himself was hurt, itself was opened, herself, these are wrong sentences. So, sentences beginning with reflexive pronouns cannot be used in passive forms, these are ungrammatical and unacceptable sentences, right. Intransitive like the verbs or link verbs, right, cannot be used. So, you just say sleep, cause, took off, then last, measure, these verbs cannot be used in passive forms, cannot be passivized, because such other intransitive or link verbs like this cannot be also used in passive forms, right. Imperative verbs cannot normally be passivized. Open the door, post the letter, in grammar, in old grammar we say let the letter be posted, let the door be opened, these verbs cannot be used, there is very restriction to it. Gandhiji was born in 1869, right, he was drowned in the river. So, there are some verbs like born, drawn, these verbs they are used in passive forms, they are always in passive forms, right, they do not have active forms, right. Intransitive phrasal verbs cannot be passivized, all the lights in the line went out, go out is the passive, is the phrasal verb, we cannot use in passive form. The car broke down on the way, so we cannot say it was broken down, so the car broke down, right. The tree was cut down, you just see here went out and broke down are intransitive phrasal verbs. So, there are some verbs like cut down, called off, run over, these verbs can be acceptable can be used in passive forms, and these sentences are also acceptable sentences. The tree was cut down, the strike was called off, the owl was run over by a truck, these are acceptable or grammatical sentences, right. So, the last thing is very important thing, how we can use the interrogative sentences in the active forms. Did the police arrest the thief yesterday? You see, we have to follow certain steps. First, make it declarative. The police did arrest means the police arrested the thief yesterday, and the thief object will be the subject. The thief was arrested by the police. Usually we ignore the by because it is general, it is understood. That is why the thief was arrested yesterday, and when we will change into question, we can say was the thief arrested yesterday. So, this is one way, or these are the steps to be followed to make the interrogative sentences passive sentences, right. So, in their passive forms we have to follow certain, that means we have to make the interrogative sentences into declarative forms, and then we will change the forms active forms into passive forms, and then we will bring the auxiliary verbs or the WH words to the beginning of the sentence. So, that we can get the passive forms of the interrogative sentences. So, my dear children, actually we have a lot of ideas in your book, please read. We have discussed some ideas, and again we will discuss the other ideas. So, dear children, now we discussed some important steps which can be followed to make the active sentences into passive sentences, right. Let us discuss some very important steps also. You just see who wrote this book. Step 1, somebody wrote this book. Who wrote this book means actually you do not know, or the speaker or the writer does not know actually who wrote this book. So, somebody wrote this book, this is the declarative form, and again you bring the object to the subject position, this book, right. Then this book was written by somebody, right. Then this book was written by somebody. In case of somebody we can use by whom or who. So, by whom was this book written, or who was the book written by. So, my dear children, if I say who wrote this book, this is a very simple on a sentence, we can change this sentence into passive form easily, right. Suppose before going to the by agents, or whether we should use by agents or how we can use this, just I am going to focus again on some interrogative sentences, how to use passive forms in interrogative sentences, right. Just look at one example, so that it will be easier for you and you will be very clear about this. Did the hunter, you just see, did the hunter kill the tiger? This is an interrogative sentence, right. And let us see how we can change this sentence into passive form. This is in active form, active sentence. We will make it passive. So, what are the steps we can follow, so that it will be easier for us. So, now you change the sentence into declarative sentence. The first step, step 1, the hunter killed the tiger. You just see, the hunter killed the tiger. So, first you in your mind you change it into declarative form, right. Step 2, now you change the declarative sentence into its passive form. So, the tiger was killed by the hunter. as you know we have already discussed. The tiger, this is the tiger is the object will be the subject, the tiger, right. Killed is the past, simple past, and the simple past passive form is was killed, we have already discussed, was killed or were killed, because this is singular form tiger. So, the tiger was killed, and then the agent is here, the hunter. So, by the hunter, and because it is a question, we have to change it into a question. The third form is, you just see, change it. The tiger was the tiger killed by the hunter. That means, this auxiliary verb is to be brought to the beginning. Was the tiger killed by the hunter? Question mark. So, now the answer is, the passive form of this sentence, the answer is, did the hunter kill the tiger? Was the tiger killed by the hunter? This is the answer. So, I think you understand this. Let us go to discuss the use of the by plus the agent phrase in the passive, right. When the agent is an important person, we have to use by, we cannot ignore. As we have discussed, the thief was arrested, we cannot say the thief was arrested by the police. Now, you see, suppose the object is a renowned scientist, a poet, or a writer, or a painter, or an artist, or an inventor, or a discoverer, then we cannot ignore the agent. The Ramayana was written by Valmiki. Valmiki was one of the eminent poets. He wrote Ramayana, that is why we cannot ignore, we cannot say Ramayana was written. Radio was invented by Marconi, you just see the image of Marconi, how nice, the image of Valmiki, right. So, the radio was invented by Marconi. Marconi is one of the eminent scientists, famous scientists, right. He is one of the famous scientists. So, we cannot ignore this. The Mona Lisa was painted by Leonardo da Vinci, right, and this painter is also one of the greatest painters of the world. So, we have to use this by agent form. We cannot ignore Mona Lisa was painted, we can say, we must say the Mona Lisa was painted by Leonardo da Vinci, right. When the agent is an indefinite person, we use the passive form. While the woodcutter was passing through the forest, he was suddenly killed by a tiger, right. So, he was suddenly killed by a tiger, the woodcutter was killed by a tiger. So, my dear children, this is an indefinite person, a tiger, and that is why we can use passive. Although the problem was very difficult, it was solved by a child. You look at the image of Dharmapada, he was able to finish the Konark temple, the top of the Konark temple was built by Dharmapada. So, we cannot ignore here, right. When the person is an indefinite person, it is very important and we have to use this, right. When the agent is an inanimate or non-living thing or object and is regarded as something unusual, unexpected, the traffic is in our city is manned by electrical devices, we have to use, right, by our electrical devices we have to use agent. This hotel is run by a robot, right. So, inanimate, when the object is an inanimate or non-living thing, then we have to use by agent, right. Situations where the passive is used without the by agent, stars were created millions of years ago, you see, millions of years ago, right. My purse has been stolen, here there is no by form. So, why there is no by form? Let us look at the principles. When we are not interested in the agent, amara agraha nahi, my dog has been killed, my interest is I am worried about the killing of my dog, I am not worried about the man who killed, my dog has been killed. This car is made in India, who made is not important, this car is made in India, right. When the speaker thinks that the agent is obvious, just like the thief was arrested, the patient was admitted into hospital, grapes are grown in Hyderabad. These are obvious, these are very natural. That is why we can also ignore the by agent, right. So, when the speaker knows who or what the agent is, but does not want to mention him, all the biscuits have been eaten up. किए खाइची कहिया को लाज लागुची बा लुचेया को चाहूचे, mistakes were made in the totaling of marks, right. It is hoped that he will flourish in his business. It is believed that in this type of sentences, when somebody wants to hide the agent, when we use the sentence beginning with it is hoped, it is believed, it is thought, it is expected, in these cases we avoid the by phrases. So, my dear students, we discussed a lot of things in passive forms and uses. I think you will read all the things and you will do all the exercises which have been given in your textbook, and you will know more about the use of passive forms, right. Thank you very much.